to Proudct Academy Tough Stuff, the podcast where we cut through the noise and get straight to the toughest challenges in product management. I'm Tanja Lau.
And I'm Francesca Cortesi.
In each episode, we tackle one tough question. No fluff, no filler. Just candid insights from seasoned product leaders.
Our guests deliver actionable, real-world answers. Whether you're an experienced product leader or just stepping into the product world, this is your go-to podcast for sharp, tested advice, condensed for your busy schedule.
One tough challenge, practical insights, short and real.
Let's dive in.
Hello, Corinne. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tanja. Thanks. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. I'm really excited about today's topic because you have been a product manager in B2B and B2B2C, but now recently you made the move and the switch towards internal product management. And this is something that doesn't get a lot of attention in courses and books. So I thought it would be nice to dive deeper into this topic. So can you tell us a little bit more about where are you working? Who are your internal customers? And what is different in general compared to your previous jobs in your new role?
Yes, of course. To answer your first question, what is the difference? Who are my internal customers? So the main difference, of course, you said it is the customers, right? I'm not working now in B2B or B2C where I have users or customers in the open market, but I do develop products for internal customers. To give a little bit of context, I work in data and AI space. So all the products that I do or that I'm responsible for is like a data platform. And to give you a little bit of background information, a typical customer, or I say rather user, because they don't pay for your tool, and that's one thing I can talk a little bit later as well, is, for example, the analytics department. So they need some analytical data, right? We're like the platform providing the analytical data so that they can crunch their numbers, they can build their dashboard, and they can use it for management reporting, etc. So that would be one example. Another example is also that with that data that we're producing, we can build highly complex analytical products, like advanced products such as machine learning workflows or machine learning algorithm and stuff like that. And then on that side, you have a completely different set of internal users because it's another team using your API to develop that algorithm, or even the end product for our customers. So I work for SRF, so it would be, for example, the SRF News app, for those who know the app, that then integrate what we've built into their product to reach the end users. So it's quite diverse, and you have a lot of different stakeholders. You have a lot of different users, and that's what makes it quite interesting as well, because you always have to have that in mind, that context of for whom are you building this product now, or that feature now, or who else could also benefit from the same feature as well.
Okay, so you already mentioned that your internal users, they don't pay for your product, yes, right? And yes, yet you probably have to prioritize your backlog according to some sort of business value. So how do you approach this? And also when you have to make trade-off decisions between, for example, the marketing department versus maybe the newsroom, or however you call your internal department, how do you do that?
Yeah, good question. And probably something of I'd say the toughest challenge for me in internal product management is the stakeholder dynamics. So often if you work in internal product management, it's quite a big organization you work for. That's why you even have an internal product department. And you have this department conflicts that you mentioned, like marketing wants something, but then the analytics department wants something else. They have their own goals, right? So they want to reach their KPIs, etc. And the best you can do, or what I try to do, is that I have a step-by-step approach on how I would prioritize. So first of all, I do have a vision and a mission for my product. And that is really important that you have that as well, so that you know what do you want actually to achieve in the long run. So you can then map the features or the requests that you get to that vision. Which one actually aligns with the vision that you have? Which one probably doesn't align at all, etc. And then you go into negotiation.
Sorry for interrupting you, but can you maybe give us an example of what this mission or vision looks like for an internal product? Maybe somebody has never thought about that before.
Yeah. And I actually, when I started, I didn't really think about it either. And we didn't have a proper vision, long run view on that. And then I went into discussion with all the different stakeholders, and we established that vision. And in my example, it was like a data platform. And what we did is really, what do we want to stand in for, and what do we want to provide to our users? So I included in the vision, like, for whom are you building this product? And thinking big as well, not just the current stakeholders that we had, but really, where is the potential that we could serve? So other BUs, for example, as well, other departments that we're currently not serving yet. And then also, so who are our users? But then also, what is like the core business that we want to provide, like the service? So in our case, it was really like that we collecting and processing all this data, and that what do we do with this data? We provide it to our end users, etc. And then also I added, I think it was even a template that I used from your class, Tanja. I added a last section also, like, and how do we compare to like other tools, or what is special in this vision, what we provide. So like, unless another tool, we can do this and this, like we have full data ownership, or we provide full flexibility, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But I think it's important that you have this vision. You can always tie back, and because you, or in the best case, you did this together with your stakeholders, they align and approve this vision. And it's also, in the most case, approved by the management. So basically, everyone in the organization should know that this vision is where you're going towards to, right? So that's what I use when I have a conflict. But sometimes still, like, both feature can match that vision, and then you still need to make a decision. And then I basically go a step further and I look at the whole portfolio. So I manage a product, but then we have a lot of like products coming together that kind of like form a whole portfolio. In that case, it could be all the digital products that somehow we provide as a company, right? And there you have priorities as well, right? So you need to check, like, what are the priorities in terms of this overall portfolio? Can one of these features support another initiative or another feature, another product that we have that has high priority, high urgency, or something like that? Then it's a clear winner, for example. So these are a little bit like the dynamics that you can kind of like feel a little bit, and that is also in your task, or I see it as my task as product manager. And if that all doesn't help, what I have also done is that I literally took the features from like the conflicting ones, and I pushed them back to my stakeholders and let them decide. And I provided them, look, we have this problem that we have limited resources. I cannot do both at the same time. We have A or we have B. How would you decide what you think is most important? Can you live a little bit longer with like a compromise or something like that? And that helps a lot. I've seen that this kind of like opened the mindset for them as well to think a little bit outside of the box from just their own department and think bigger in the whole organization. And then also you're aligned with your stakeholders because they've taken the decision and they feel included in decision, which helps a lot for your relationship and for your trust as well.
Which is also one of the differences when you have internal users. You can talk to them about all the other things that you have on your plate, right? You can disclose a lot of information and hope that they understand which kind of trade-off decisions you're about to make. What I've seen when working with other companies is that often internal products get into this friction between, on the one hand side, being, especially in the data area, being able to reduce workload, manual workload by, for example, automating certain processes or enriching certain data flows, versus, on the other hand side, providing additional business value by serving the customer better with more personalization, right? So you have like cost reduction versus business growth. And what I've seen, and I don't know if that is something that resonates with you, that in some companies you have both those goals at the top and they have not been balanced against each other, right? So basically the company is trying to both cut costs and also grow the business. And then it becomes really difficult to make this trade-off decision. Have you experienced that for your product, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, definitely. Like right now we have our KPIs, our North Stars, our strategic goals that we want to achieve. And one, for example, is increase efficiency, but then another one is also like increase the attractiveness of our offers. And sometimes they're really conflicting, right? You need to like maybe build up a workflow that isn't really efficient in the beginning or does cost a lot of like initial effort to do it. So at the end, I think it's similar to what I said before with prioritizing. You need to somehow find a trade-off. You need to think a little bit like 2 steps ahead and think of what can I achieve now that could help me in the long run also to like improve, for example, offer attractiveness, etc. So when you do something, and I think that's actually the beauty of managing internal products is your product has like it multiplies tremendously because everything that you do has a huge impact on everyone else in the business because they're like you're the backbone of every decision or you're the
Correct.
backbone of like their I don't know their data for their product that they can use then to build a product
Yes.
for their end users. So that multiplier, I think that you have to keep in mind as well. And if you do something like if you increase efficiency, I have an example actually, maybe that helps to explain. So we've developed like a new workflow for the analysts to work with our data. And we got the feedback that with this workflow, they reduced the time or like they saved time. It was 70 times faster than before. Imagine 70 times faster. That's so much time that they save. It's so much efficiency that they save. And when you save time, you kind of like save costs as well at the same time. And with that, because they can work so much faster and smarter and more efficient, that also reflects to what they do, to the decision they take, to like the end user products that they then do. So it kind of like the impact just multiplies, and what you do at the core reflects really also what you do at the end of the value chain for your end users,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah, thank you for shedding light on that. I think it's such a powerful point, and a lot of people think it's less sexy to work for internal product, but I think what you just said is so true.
Probably is.
Maybe, yeah, but as you said, like you can also have a lot of ripple effects down the line, and I
Yes.
think that is something that I wanted to also touch on. As I think it's quite interesting to define where do you see like the borders of your system that you think you're influencing, right? Because, for example, with the cost cutting example, I think it's quite interesting. If you look at how do we define success for our internal products, you could say like, great, we've saved them a lot of time, right? So they're 70 times faster. That's impressive. For me, the question would be also what happens with this time savings? Where are they used to create additional business value? Are we letting people go because we're now much faster and we need less people? Are these people doing something else? And if they're doing something else, what are they doing? Because this is where actually the business value comes from and not just from the time reduction per se. And I think a lot of teams stop at the time reduction. That's how they justify their business cases. But I think it would be so interesting to look one step further. Is this something that you do? Or how do you see that?
It's a tough question. It is something that I do, but I think it is something that I do like more from my personality, that I am a person that feels responsible for a lot, or that I always feel, oh, if I think about that now, I need to think about all the other consequences in the chain, right? But you also need to keep in mind that sometimes you cannot influence that decision. But what you can do is when you do something like this time saving that you said or like the efficiency gain, that you stay close to your stakeholder even after that, when you delivered your product, and you include them as well. And then together you find out maybe that, oh, actually there's something else we can use with the time now, and maybe even they need your assistance for that, and you can like do some super fancy something that before you didn't even have like the capacity to think about it. So I think it helps if you just stay, I mean, anyway, you always need to stay very close to your end users, and I think that's the beauty of internal management, like the proximity to your users, right? But I think it's important, as you said, to try to think a step ahead, but also I think it's important to keep a little bit of boundary just for the health of yourself, I'd say, and like talk with management about it. But what does it mean if we implement this feature? What does it mean if we kind of like increase efficiency that maybe yeah, it kind of like frees up capacity in this department. What do we do with this department? What is our ethical responsibility in this part as well? And I think especially now with the whole AI buzz around it, I mean, there's a lot of ethical questions that you need to ask, and also then I think it's up to you to kind of like not force your management, but ask your management also to have like a straight line in terms of what are our ethical considerations, to which extent do we want to go, what is our first goal, do we do efficiency gain no matter what, do we always keep in mind what are the like how are we currently working, for what do we want to use the free resources, where do we have priority, can we shift like capacity, or can we shift projects or something like that to invest our resources in something that maybe provides a higher impact and where we can support with that. So
Yeah.
there's I think no final answer, but definitely I think it's a good point that you said, that you always have to keep it in mind a little bit and just think about all the consequences that you have with your product as well.
The cool thing for internal product is that often you can measure certain things like interactions with your internal product. Like maybe we can talk about some of the metrics that you are looking at. I've seen that with other companies, that they looked at like how many people do log in or look at our dashboards or like download certain things and so on. And then for them, the second step was to look at, but in the end, what we want to achieve is, for example, better decision quality. And how do you measure that? And that can be very tricky to measure, but what helped them is to do kind of a zero baseline subjective measurement of like, how do you feel about your decision quality today? And then after we make some changes, again, a subjective questionnaire to these stakeholders. How do you feel now about the decisions that you're taking? And of course, it's not perfect, but to see the progress and the shift of the metrics that you actually wanna improve, which is not just people logging into your tools, but what they do with these tools, right? I think that can be quite interesting. So I would be interested in hearing if you can share some of the metrics that you feel like those are success metrics that we feel ownership for, that we look at as internal product managers.
Yeah, of course. It's a bit like, so because I mentioned that I have quite a lot of different users, right? So I have like the analytics one, and that's all about like this traditional data platform users. So you can have metrics like how many users are logged in, how are your dashboards used, etc. These are important to look at, but I don't feel they're really telling the truth, and they're not really telling like also the happiness of your product and the real impact of your product. So what we also try to look at is a bit more like creative metrics, as you said, and sometimes that could be like user satisfaction also. For example, we had one feature where like a process, a step, it was quite like manually, it was like 8 steps that I had to do manual, super like boring and like not really providing any value. And then we reduced that to like a almost automated step, and the user satisfaction was so much more important than actually the time saving, because just when the users are happy and when you get this feedback of like, hey, actually now because we're happy, we're actually using it also more. So that is one success metrics that I look like. Of course, this is really hard to measure, and I don't have like a metric where I keep count of user satisfaction or something like that. But you can measure it just by the feedback you get, for example, and how you interact with your stakeholders. But then we also have products where we, for example, just provide an API, and there you can be quite like techy in the terms of you can like just see how are your API calls used, etc. So you can have some like leading indicator for that, which is all good and nice. And what we also do is like we track the data quality as a success metric. So how can we improve our data quality? We have like a log of outages, for example. Can we like reduce these outages that we have? Can we reduce like the errors that we get, like the just general data quality? So that is another example that I use. And then also, and I think that is probably for me the most powerful, is like the adoption. I don't have a number or like a KPI that I can like put on a paper and really compare from week to week or something like that. But when you start with an internal product, or when you have an internal product, you always have your main stakeholders, right? So you have maybe your set of super users of, I don't know, like 20 or 50 people or something like that. And they're coming from like 2 or 3 like main departments, and they're really the people that you're working on. And when you start developing it and you have your long-term vision in mind, you suddenly realize when you talk to people outside from this bubble, oh, they're kind of like interested in that as well. And then you go about that, and then your adoption starts to scale. And as an example, we started as a regional platform. We're now fully national. We're serving all the different business units where we started just for SRF. And that is a huge multiplier. And I think that really shows the success of a product, because if you wouldn't be a product that fulfills the use cases, the other business units, they wouldn't be interested in it because they don't have to, right? It's not theoretically within, like, they're not forced to use it. Like my customers, they're kind of like forced to use my product because it was like a strategic decision or something, but the others don't. So when you see that the adoption is raising to outside of your realm or outside of your kind of like circle of influence, for me, that is one of the most powerful success criteria that you can have. And that also helps a lot to justify the cost in front of management, because that's also something that you have to do, right? You have to have reasons. Why should we exist? Why should you give me more budget so that I can work on my product, right? Why should we continue? So you need to find ways to justify the costs, and adoption is a really, really high one, because for management, like really high, like high level management, this is what they want to see, right? They want to standardize, they want to use the same product, etc., and to multiply it. And maybe on that note, also because you asked for an example, you can put numbers behind a product, even costs. It's just a bit more complicated and not straightforward, right? I don't have a price tag in front of my product. I don't have a customer like giving me money to use the product, but I do have certain costs that I can calculate, and I can still do like a TCO and compare this with, for example, a market solution, or even more important, compare it to like the costs of not having this product, like the opportunity costs. So you can like see, okay, what is like the personal costs? How much do you invest it? How big is your team? What are your license costs, etc.? All this, add it up, and then also include in that statement, what would it mean if we don't have this product? What would that mean for like the product for the end users when we couldn't do any personalization, when we couldn't do any feature in that certain topic, if we don't have the data to decide what works well or what doesn't work well in form of our offers? And these are the opportunity costs that you can count into, because it would mean we would need a different product, we can't take the decision, etc. And then you can kind of like sort of like build up this TCO and really show to management as well of what do you cost, but also what do you bring, or what would it mean if you wouldn't be building this product, right?
Yeah, and I think you also mentioned something that is quite interesting, which is build versus buy, right? Because depending on how much your internal product pays into strategic areas of your business, the more it's kind of a no-brainer that you want to have it in-house. But there are other internal tools that could be replaced by something else externally, or not be built in the first place, because something else that is out there, some other solution, will get you to market faster, right? So have you ever had these kind of discussions about new areas, whether to build or add them from outside?
Yeah, I can give you a really, really honest insight. Actually, we're being just tested ourselves, our product, if we're going to stay an internal product, or if it would make sense to buy an external solution, right? So these are thoughts that, especially now, and I mean, you know, the context of SRF, we are in a certain pressure to save costs, etc. And it is in our responsibility to think about these questions and think about, are we faster with an external tool? Are we cheaper with an external tool? What do we gain with an internal or with an external tool? And then you really have to make this decision, and you have to calculate the costs, as I said, but you also have to think strategically in what do we want to achieve? What do we need to achieve, etc. But I think for every new product that we're building, and I mean, now I'm not just in this data platform team, but I'm also managing some other products. It could be like an AI suite that we're building internally now. We always think, what can we take from the market? What do we do on ourselves? Is it a strategic decision? Is it a cost decision? Is it maybe even a legal decision? That could be as well, like especially in the realm of data and AI, you want to have your data on your own, in your own circle, and not give it away to like OpenAI or something like that. So yeah, it's definitely something we have to think about it, and there's not always the answer that you maybe want, but it's just in our responsibility also as product manager to really find the best solution for our users and also for the organization at the end.
Yeah, that's a beautiful statement. Since we're approaching the end of the conversation, is there any area that we didn't touch on that you would like to cover, or anything else that you would like to tell our listeners?
Good question. I think one thing that I would like to tell to listener or to everyone who is working in internal product management is really the fact that build a habit, not just a platform, and really treat it as a product. That is something that I struggled a bit in the beginning, because when you're working in this environment, it is so project focused, because you're in this like enterprise environment, everything is more like waterfall-y, and you just have the stakeholders giving you all these requests and demand, and the risk of them dictating you what you should build is so high and so easy for you to fall into that trap. So really stand your ground, treat it as a product, have a vision, have a proper discovery process, be so close to your customers. And that really helps then to like make sure that your product gets adapted and they're not feeling forced to use your product. Yeah, and also kind of like for a long-term vision, I think that is super important.
Yeah. That's so interesting and important, the habit part, right? Because it's not just about building a platform. If people perceive the effort as too high, or they think it's going to be so cumbersome to use it, they might not even start trying it out, right? Because they think it's much more work than it actually is. So the onboarding experience and the training and so on, that also is part of your product, probably in some way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest learning for me in my journey was really over communicate and evangelize. You can never not communicate enough. Yeah. Just really, you have to take your users along your hands, provide them with like trainings, with sessions, show like write blog posts, do like Slack messages, whatever, but really communicate, because they have their habits. They use their Excel sheet for like 10 years. Why should they suddenly change just because they're mandated to do it, right? So you need to build the habit and really make sure that you integrate it into their daily workflow so that they start to use it automatically, and because they want to use it and not because they have to use it. And I think that's the huge difference that you need to achieve.
Yeah, so product marketing basically also falls into your responsibilities, because there is no separate marketing department that will do the go-to market for your internal product, right? It's something that you also need to think about.
Yeah, exactly.
Super good. Thank you so much for shedding so much light on internal products and also making them look a little bit more sexy maybe to people. And it was really fun chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time, Corinne.
Thank you so much, Tanja.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Proudct Academy Tough Stuff.
We hope today's tough question gave you practical, actionable insights.
If you enjoyed the episode, do us a favor and leave a rating or review. It will help us grow the podcast and make future episodes even better.
Got a question for us? Send an email to toughstuff@proudctacademy.ch and ask away. We read any submission and might answer yours in a later episode.
Thank you again for listening. We'll see you next time with another tough challenge to tackle.
Until then, take care.